Hey, thanks for tuning in. Sorry guys, I thought it was John Alec for a minute then. It's Nigel here from Nigel's Modelling Bench, not John Alec from John Alec's modelling channel. So, why have I done that? Well, John actually kindly bought me this model and had it sent from the all the way from the US to the UK. It only took a few days to get here. It was amazing. And yeah, very, very generous of you. Thanks very much, John. Below this video in the description there is a link to his build. So I'm going to build this out of respect for John for sending it to me, and I'm going to get on with it and get it built. His is actually built now. You can see his build series, as I say, from the link below. So get on over there, give him a subscribe. He's a fantastic modeler and he's a lovely, lovely guy. He came all the way over to the UK last year for the Scale Model World at Telford and managed to get out and have a curry with him, which was absolutely amazing. A lot of us went out together and he was there with his daughter. We had big hugs and everything. It was great. So as some of you will know, at the moment I'm not particularly well. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm feeling a lot better. The biggest problem I have with the scale modelling world is that my eyes are all streamy and wet and horrible. I can't really see anything. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll just crack on with this and see how we go and see how I get on with it. I really should be working on that sock with camel, working on those wings and everything, but honestly life's too short at the moment. I just can't get the enthusiasm. I've spent hours and hours and hours on those bloody wings with those ejector pin marks. I'm telling myself wrong now after telling Moss so many times he says it wrong. Anyway, so this is the 1/35th scale M109A7 from RFM Byfield model. It's going to be available very shortly. Today is the 19th of February 2025. It's going to be available within the next 5 to 10 days from Tiger Hobbies. There's also a link down in the description below, so you can get on over there and get yourself one ordered. He doesn't do a pre-order, but he does a thing where you can put your email address in and he will contact you as soon as it comes in. So there we go. You'll already see I've done a video about the tracks. I've also made a video about aftermarket tracks that I may not bother putting out because they may not fit properly. We shall see. I will find out in this video actually if they fit, and then go from there. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. As I say, if you want to see a quick build in 3 or 4 parts, then John's modelling channel is the one for you. If you want to see a detailed build of how it goes together with all the bits and pieces, all pulled to pieces and everything, then my channel's the one for you. So, you know, depending on which you like. Some people like a fast build, some people like nitty gritty and every bit of detail. But I'm going to get this one off the start line and just plow through because it's a beautiful, fairly simple build. And out of respect to John, I need to get this done. And I'm also following along with him because in his instructions, well, his instructions are the same as my instructions, but in the instructions there are some issues with part numbers, and I will point those out to you as we go through, and I will point out anything that John found as well. I've also seen a couple of issues that I'm going to do, like for instance this piece here is not actually mentioned in the instructions as a part number, but John tells you in his video it's actually part E41. But when we actually come to fit these torsion bars, we're supposed to have working suspension here. When we come to fit those torsion bars, putting them in and gluing them here and then gluing the arms onto the ends is going to be extremely difficult without getting glue into those pivot points. So what I'm going to do is actually fit the torsion bars to the arms and then fit them in afterwards. Okay, so I think that will make it a lot easier. Then we'll have working suspension then. But anyway, let's get ploughed in. As I said, I've done a review of this. I've also done a video about the tracks. The tracks are here. If you haven't already seen that, make sure you go and have a look if you're building this kit or you're intending to get one, because I've discovered a couple of little handy little things that will help you get them together a lot quicker. For example, these horns on the tracks, you can actually fit them as one assembly still on the sprue rather than in each one individually. And if you leave these together like this, they will fit in your jig and you can build the tracks up and then cut the gates off afterwards. Okay, so first things first, something unusual in my kit John didn't have. We've got upper hull new and here. Now, for a start, this isn't an upper hull. I don't know why they've called it upper hull new, other than the fact it's got this rib across it in here. So it's just adding a bit of stiffness to the back. I suppose that's a little bit floppy and that one's a bit more rigid. So I don't know. So we're using upper hull new, even though it's not an upper hull. You'd have thought they'd have taken the other one out and then ground it down for reuse, but which you can do with plastic granules. This plastic comes in granular form, and it goes into a hopper and it's fed down into the RAM and everything. And sometimes with plastic you can actually regrind it after it's been moulded, and then you can sort of use 30% reground or whatever you plan on. You can put the reground plastic back in, but you can't actually put it 100%. You can only sort of add 20-30%, whatever, to new. So let's find that part. So we've got the upper hull there, which is absolutely gorgeous. The moulding in this kit is stunning, and the actual subject itself, the M109A7, to me is just gorgeous. So I'm looking for sprue E, because that's where we're looking for that part, and it's going to be right at the bottom. I'll be back in a sec when I found it and we'll get it cut out. Alright, I found sprue E. It was right at the bottom of the box. So you can see this part here that's not called up in the instructions is E41. So we'll take the covers off our gun hands and then we'll cut this one off the sprue, just like so. And this is going to be our main inner pivot for our these are that way, so we use the god hands properly, that way up. This is going to be the main pivot for our torsion bars. There we go. It does say on the front of the box movable torsion bars, so it's intended to be working suspension. Now, something else that John noticed in his build, you can see on here you've got a long and a thin end on the actual torsion bars themselves. So click on here at sprue D. You can see on here we have, these are D41, yeah. So I'm going to cut that off there, leave plenty of sprue on there because I'm not exactly sure where the ends are. So we've got flush there, overlay on the top, so we can actually use our god hands correctly. If you want to get yourself some god hands, get yourself on over to brooksmodels.com and you can get 10% off up to £50 and 20% off over 50 using the code NMB10 or NMB20. Sorry, the 10% is 15 to £50. You have to spend 15 minimum. So what John was saying, that one end is long, as you can see, one end's got a long flat and one end's got a short flat. And the way it goes together, the long flat goes into here, he says. Yeah, because the short flat will go in there as well, but then will the long flat fit in the torsion bars? And as you can see there, the answer is no. It's not sitting right down in. Okay, so not the torsion bars, the swinging arms. Alright, so basically we've got our parts there. I'm just going to do a quick check to see, do we need to remove any flash or anything or any mould lines? No, we don't. We've got a nice sliding fit, so we should get a nice fit on the arms. So first things first, we're going to glue this in. Now we've got an ejector pin mark, or a Z pin should I say, so just nip that one off. And we got one there as well. And they're not going to get in the way of anything, but I'm not sure if this is direction. Looks like it looks like it's uni. Oh no, it's not. It won't go either way because you've got one end here, one end's longer there, and also that tab's longer, so it's designed to fit. You can see you've got a longer slot and two shorter slots, so it won't go either way. It won't physically fit that way. You can't get that. You can see that tab goes in the slot and it's sloppy, but then this one won't actually go. So basically that's going to go in that way, just like so, and that's going to sit down like that. So that's how it's going to go in. Right, so what we will do, we will get some extra thin and we'll put a drop in there. This is just to tack it for now. Drop in there and a drop in there. Okay, so we've got a nice big drop in each, and that'll get a good bit of weld action going on. So we'll drop that in there, drop that in there. There we go. I also want to get that M10 Booker built as well that I've got from Magic Factory, because that's a beautiful looking thing, in my opinion. So we'll get plenty of cement in here to get this properly welded in, because the last thing you want is this breaking away. So I don't generally watch other people's builds before I do a build, because I like to sort of have my own opinion of how things should go or whatever. But in this case, because John sent me the model and because John's found all the issues already, then I may as well just go straight in. And if there's anything that he suggested, I will actually credit him for it, because there's nothing worse than people coming along and pinching your ideas and claiming them as their own, which happens in all walks of life, doesn't it? I can see it's very untidy, that glue. I've got it everywhere, but it doesn't matter. It's inside the hull. It's all going to be sealed up. The factor here that matters is having some strength in it. So as we can see, we've got the torsion beam there, torsion arm. So that's going to go in like that. And as you can see, we've got nothing really to hold on the end to index it, but there you go. So you can see you've got this tiny little stub sticking out. And to get the cement onto that without having it get onto the hull is going to prevent the suspension from working. So what I'm going to do is take a suspension arm. As you can see, we've got one missing, but it doesn't matter because we only need 5. So this is going to be 18. Okay, so we'll take one of these and we'll give it a clean up in a minute. And what I'm going to do is glue that into there. Okay, and check it's all nice and square and everything. What we can do is get a piece of tube with a nice square end on it and just push it down over and make sure the end's nice and square. And then we can glue that, let that dry, and then once that's glued together and dry, we can slot that in like so and just glue that end, and then we'll have working suspension with no risk of getting glue on the hull. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to play it. So I'm going to get all those glued up. Remember when John did his, he actually glued the 6 arms on, and I was so pleased when I saw that bit of his video, because as you know from my review, I got one missing here, broken off and not in the bag, so it broke off in the factory. Naughty Ryfield model, you sent me an incomplete kit. And I thought, how much more difficult could it be to try and raise a claim for a replacement part on a kit that was bought for me by someone else and shipped from a shop in America? So I didn't even buy it myself. You can imagine trying to do that, it would have been a nightmare. Anyway, I'm going to get all these torsion bars glued to these arms and then let that dry, and then I'll be back for some more. So as you can see here, we've got those 5 glued up. Now if you turn over the page, you go to step 3, here we're adding the last road wheel, and it has a shock absorber, but it also has, on the back, there is a little raised nubbin on there, you can see, next to the hole, and that engages in a little slot there. So clearly they don't want this rear suspension to work, probably because of the shock absorber. So what I'm going to do is cut that little nubbin off. Okay, so it's not there at all. And I'm going to have this working. So just remove that little nubbin, sand away any wetness of it so it doesn't catch on anything. So and then I can just glue. What I'm doing is taking the torsion bar, okay, take the short end, turn it so it lines up, and then drop of extra thin in there, a nice strong joint. And what we're going to do is leave these to dry. Now as you can see, these are a much better fit actually than this one. There's a bit of play on there, so to true that up, I'm going to take my David Union pin vise, okay, and I'm going to put that torsion bar down in there and do the pin vise so that it's just a sliding fit, and then push it up to the end, and then that will get that square. So I'm going to push it up to the end. I'm just going to leave it there for a minute and let that gel off. So we'll glue the other one, and as you can see there's quite a bit of play on there. These were much better. So this is off a different sprue. These are D parts and this one is an E part. So get that glued in there. I'm going to put a little drop more cement in there because I want it solid. Got to be really careful with these arms because the tiny little pivot point on there, one little knock and they'll snap off very easily. Okay, so we'll just leave that to sort of gel off there. And then with this one nice and true, there we go. So we can take that out of there. And that's going to be our rear most arm. You can see the difference. It's got this little raised lump on it for the shock absorber mount. Just push that in like that, and that makes sure that that arm is perpendicular to the actual shaft itself. Okay, and then when it comes to build it up, what we'll do is just pop them in, glue one end, and that will be it, job done. So I'm going to look forward in the instructions here, go back to step 2. Okay, so we'll be doing that in a second when we glue it all together. So we've got this little assembly here, so we've got the towing eyes, and we've got these shackles here. So there's some towing eye brackets there. I'm not exactly sure what these things are. But, I'm sure we'll work it out. You can see them on the front here. There's those there. Ah, they're steps, aren't they? They flip them down to step up to get on. Okay, and probably when they stamp off them, they flip themselves back up. But there's your towing eyes, and then there's steps. Right. Okay. So that's that. Right. So we're going to get these parts off the sprue and get them glued together. Okay, parts off the sprue to complete this part. Just like John, I'm not going to put the mud flaps on yet because they're likely to get broken off. And the other thing I'm not going to fit these loops here, C28, because they'll be loose, and I want to leave them loose. And if I put them on now, they'll probably get knocked off, broken, whatever. They are quite flimsy little parts, so we're not going to put those on. But the rest of it we are going to do. I'm not going to fit this photo etch piece either. No point in getting super glue out just for that. So we'll come back to that when we got the super glue out for something else. So torsion bars are all drying up nicely. So let's have a look at all of this. So we're going to put we're not putting the torsion bars in yet because they're still drying. But this gearbox case can go in here. So these are actually, they're both D7, so they're not handed or anything. So they fit beautifully like that. Remember when you do this, there is a little, the sprue gate on here is raised, so that will hold that away. So that's going to go in like that, which is lovely. And I'm just going to take a drop of extra thin and drop that in from the inside, and we'll put some there as well, and that will go around and hold that in position. That's going to support our sprockets. Then we'll do the same on the other side. So that one's going to go in like so. I didn't notice there's a step at the top there where we can go as well. So there we are. So that's in there. Okay, lovely fit there, beautifully done. Right, and then we've got these pieces here, E66 and E53. This one is 66, and you can see the difference in these. It's the wrong colour plastic for photography, isn't it? 66, 53. So one has almost like a cam lock thing on it, and the other one doesn't. I'm not sure exactly what it is. So this one's going to go that way round, and it's going to go into that small hole there. So what we'll do is we'll put a drop of extra thin in that hole, decent sized drop so it doesn't just dry out. I'm going to grab my El Cheapo tweezers and plonk that into there just like that. I don't have a clue what it is, but it's something, that's for sure. And then this side is just going to go in, and that's just going to sit there sticking out, probably get broken off, but hey ho. What we'll do, we'll grab that in our tweezers as well, and this one is going to go into there like that. Okay, there we are. I'm just going to check actually, are these arms going to fit with that in there? Yes. Okay, so Remember, we want those to be rock solid before we put them in here, so we'll probably go on and build the wheels and everything first. Right, so that's those in. And then we've got this, on this rear plate here, we've got these little parts. I'm just checking, we do have I thought that was a mould seam, that's a little designed in step. There's actually a nice weld around there as well. So we've got this little part here, E64, and that's going to go that way up. So it's got the little triangular bit at the bottom. So that's going to go like that. But just put a drop of extra thin like that, and that'll be enough to hold that one in. Just make sure it's nice and square. And then we've got this tiny little piece here, whatever it may be, E73, and that's forming an L shape when it's upside down. So here we go, contortionist at the ready again. Whoopsie daisy, I dropped that. I've just noticed actually there's a mould seam on there. So I'm just going to sand that out. There's a mould seam about 1 millimetre up from the edge. There we go. Right. So I'm going to plonk that in position on there, just like so. Okay, again, that's got a little bit of play in it, so we're going to make sure it's nice and square. Just like that. And then a drop of cement into there. Just like that. There you go. So that's those two parts on there cemented in. And then we're going to build up these frames. So we've got these steps. I think they're steps. I've noticed on my kit this part here, this is D23. On one of them it's been damaged coming out of the mould tool. It's sort of caught on the pin as it's being pushed out by the look of it. But luckily it's pretty much hidden. So basically I'm going to use tweezers to put this together so you can see what we're doing. So that's going to go that way round and into that slot there. Now we've got an ejector pin mark on there, so I'm going to put this one on the inside. Put that on so that the ejector pin mark is on the inside. Now what I'm going to do here is put a drop of cement on here. Quickly. Put that in, ejector pin mark on the inside. There we go. So that's gone in. It's got a little bit of play in it, so we'll just make sure it's nice and square. Okay, now I'm wondering, are these moulded? Were they all moulded the same way round? So do we have to remove the ejector pin marks? So that one's going to go on that way. So that's got an ejector pin mark on that side. Yeah, they're all the same, unfortunately. So hopefully we'll just be able to sand that away rather than have to start filling and stuff like that. Yeah, good enough. Right. So again, I'll put a little drop of extra thin on there. Just enough to tack it in place, and then that can go like that. And then what I'm going to do is put a drop of extra thin on the inside at the bottom, and that will capillary around and do its thing. And then that's going to go on the hull into those slots there that are designed. They've got a weld bead on them that are absolutely gorgeous. Oops, just flicks it across the room. Wow. I think it's probably best to let the glue dry a bit and let them get themselves a bit solidified before we start playing with them, because they just want to fall apart. So I'll get the other ones built up. I thought what we'll do, we'll go on and put, we've got this piece here is going to go on that way up into those grooves there. And again, we've got a lovely weld bead around there. So what we can do is just come in with our extra thin and run around and get a nice seal on there. Because the last thing you want is any gap underneath the weld. It'll look like I've welded it. Whoopsie daisy. There we go. So we can come round there. There we go. So that's those in, and then we've got these towing eye parts that are going in this way with the smaller hole at the top, or the bottom as you're looking at it, but it's the top in real life because it's upside down. Again, we've got a lovely weld seam around there, which is really nice. Then we can pop that one into there. Oh, this is a lovely kit. I can see John just kept on saying time after time after time how lovely it was, and now I can see why. So we'll get those nice and square. Yeah, they're perfect. As you can see here, we've got a bit of a gap there and on there, so I'm going to have to get some pegs out and clamp that. Glad I noticed that. So I'm going to grab a couple of my specially modified pegs. There should be a grip on there. Oh, I wish I'd noticed before I put these. I'm going to take these off. It's going to make it a lot easier to clamp them. Let's try a reverse close peg. Will that go on there? There we go. That's holding it down. So we'll put another drop of cement in there with it clamped in place. There we go. And then look out for that. You do not want, you can see there's a gap. There's a gap underneath that weld. That looks bloody awful. So we'll get a drop of cement into there and a drop of cement into there. And just leave those to dry. I'm glad I noticed that. Blimey. Right, so when we put those in, we'll just put some extra thin around them, and that'll hide all that extra glue marks. Anyway, I'm going to get this other step assembled, and then I'll come back. So while all that's drying, we've got this drying, we've got everything drying. I thought I went on and fitted those parts as well with the little step-ups. So they're in there. They've got a lovely weld seam around the bottom as well, as you can see there. It really is a beautiful kit, this one. So I thought we'd get a look at the sprockets. Now these sprockets, when they're on the sprue, there are lots of clean-up points. So you need a little narrow sanding stick to get in there and get them cleaned up nicely. Anything that's there you should be able to do after it's all glued together anyway. So we've got the parts here. We've got our poly caps. As you can see, poly caps come in an individual little bag. P1 is the cap they're asking us to use. So we've got here part D12. So that poly cap's going to go in there. And then that poly cap's going to go into that one. And on the back of there we have a pin. We have a couple of ejector pin marks, but they're actually shallow, so that's going to be okay. And then that's going to glue together like that and hold that poly cap in place. So we will just go around there with our extra thin. And that will hold that together. And then this one here will do exactly the same. Just like so. That. Give it a little wiggle, and what we want to do is get the sprockets on before that glue fully dries. Now, as with one of those other parts, I've also got a damaged sprocket here. One of them was bent. I think it was this one. Yeah, you can see it's been distorted as it's been pushed out of the tool. I've obviously got a draggy sprue or whatever, so I'm going to make sure that one goes on the inside. There is, as John pointed out, there is a tiny little slot, absolutely minuscule little slot in there, and there's the tiniest of little steps on there, so to get the alignment, because obviously the sprockets have to align side to side. So just give it a twist, and unfortunately right where that bend is on that sprocket is where the little nubbin is, so it's easily going to come out. So what I'll do the outside. I'm going to leave that one over there. I'll do the outside one first. Okay, so again we've got this tiny little step. It's on here somewhere, I can't even bloody see it. should be able to feel it. There it is. You can see how absolutely tiny little thing. It's crazy. Why did it make it a bit bigger? So that's going to go into that tiny little recess in there. You'll feel it key together. Wow. It's not going at all. I can see the little block, I can feel the little block, but it's not engaging in the slot at all. Let's try another one. Just stick that into there, turn it until you... Nope, if we pick up the other one, go to the inside face on the other one, you can stick it in the groove, you can turn it, you can kind of hear it clicking in and out. Oh wow. Okay, so there it is there, there it is there. Get that into that slot. No, it's so small, it's just not engaging at all. So what I'm going to do is just like John did, I'm going to use a pencil. He marked, I'm going to use a pen, just like John did. He marked the the sprocket tooth where the little cutout is. Okay, so where that tooth is marked, we know it's on the center of that tooth. I'll do the same with this one here, so we'll mark that one, and then we're going to mark the wheel itself where that little raised bit is. And that one's there. It's absolutely tiny. I don't know why they made it so small. That one is there. Right. So at least we can get it somewhere handy. I've got a piece of tubing here, a piece of 3mm tube, and you'll see why in a minute. So what I'm going to do is align that one with that one. Okay, so I can see the little nub in there. Okay, so I'm gluing the outer one first because I want a nice tidy job on the outside, obviously. If we make a mess on the inside one, it's not so important. But that is absolutely mad how small that location is. So we've got that one on nicely. Now this one here, again we've got the marks, we'll line the marks up. I can't feel it biting at all. I'm going to check how accurate my marking is. Get that spot in the centre of that tooth. Move my fingers out away from the seam. I'll get glue capillarying under. There we go. That's going to get a lovely strong weld on that one. Okay, so we'll push that down, make sure that's all nice and solid. And then, remember I was saying why this glue to remain soft in the middle of here. It doesn't matter now because these sprockets don't line up on here at all anyway. But now we've got this one here. It's got to locate in there. So I'm just going to put a small drop, just a small drop of cement there and a small drop 180 degrees around, and hold that together. And then we'll do the same on this one here. This is the one with the bend in it, remember. So we'll put a small drop there and a small drop around there. Okay, push that together just like so. I'm not even sure that's gone in the groove properly there. Okay. And then we take our piece of tube, and what we should be able to do is put these sprockets on the tube and have them buffer up to each other. Now obviously if the sprockets were like that, if the sprockets were misaligned, that would sit on there on an angle, it wouldn't buffer up. So I'm pushing this down, you can see I've got the tube in the teeth there on the sprocket, and I push them together and everything lines up. I can give it a good squeeze. Okay, you can do it the other way around if you want, front face to front face, just like so. Give them a good squeeze and make sure everything's lining up. And that way you know that your tracks are going to sit straight, otherwise your tracks will come off at an angle. And if it's a working model, then the tracks will keep coming off, unfortunately, if you don't get this bit right. So the other thing you can do is fit them to a shaft and then align them that way, so you've got the fitted on the end of a shaft. In fact, what we can do here is fit them to the tank like so. Okay, they're little mud scrapers, that's what they are. They're mud removers. Okay, so that was going to go in a bit higher there, right. And then what you can do then is put your brass rod across. Unfortunately you can't do this one because the gearbox is in the way, but there you go, you get the idea. You can put that across like that and check that it's all square and everything. So we'll pull that out of there, pull that one out of there, and we'll just check again. Everything's nice and square. That's what we want. There we go. Alright, so that's how that goes together. So that's our sprockets done. Wow, what a crazy little way of doing it. Why didn't they put a bigger pin in there or something? Absolutely mad. But as long as they sit nice and square, that's all that matters. That's that. So now we need to have a look at the road wheels. Idlers are back here. I'm not going to fit those yet. As you know, when I do my tank models, I never fit the idlers until I've got the tracks done, because you can glue them in place now and you may find that the track is either too saggy or too taut and you wish you could just move the idler just to get it somewhere in the middle. So don't fit the idlers until we've got the tracks made up. I'm not even sure what I'm doing with this model yet for tracks. We will see. So we got to get some parts off the sprue for the wheels, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so got the parts off the wheels. Okay, parts off for the wheels, shall I say. So we've got D2 and D3 there. We've got D1s there. They're our tyres, and we've got a P4 polycap. So we're going to drop the polycap into there, and then we'll take our wheel front. You can see again we've got alignments on here. I don't quite know why, but we do. You can see we've got a much better positive alignment on there than we have on the other parts. So they go together lovely. Now what we need to do, be careful here, is that we don't get the wheels out of parallel. So what I'm going to do here is grab a drop of cement, put that down on there, and that will capillary around or wick around. Alright, and then we can take our front half of our wheel, put them together like that, and then get them engaged. Job done. Okay, and then we can just see that they're parallel, and the best way to do that is to roll them along, and if they don't go like this while they're rolling, then they're okay. These are doing that slightly, so what we're going to do is just get them like that. The other thing you can do, the problem is, what we need to do is get the tyres on first. What I'm going to do is put our tyres on, so we've got D1 are the tyres. Alright, now you probably think these are individual so you can paint them first, but no, they've got part of the wheel rim on them. And the reason they're done like that is because, as you can see, the wheel rim has like a return. You have this return flange on there. Okay, so there we go. So what we can do is just put a drop of extra thin in there. I would not recommend, do not remove the sprue gate from your tyres yet, but I would recommend, as John says in his video, if you put the sprue gates, you can see where the sprue gates are on the tyre. Put them next to each other. Okay. So we've got like that there and like that there. Alright, so that's that gone in there, and then we can just finagle them around. Now to make sure they're square, if we quickly build up another wheel, we can put a block on them, and that will make sure it holds them parallel. But what we want is to make sure that the wheels, and there we go, that's nice and parallel now. When it rolls along together, they're not doing this. So the other thing you can do is find out, you know, I've got a bit of wood here that fits nicely between the tyres there, and as luck would have it, that is absolutely perfect, that piece of wood. Just turn that around and that will make sure everything stays parallel. Okay, so there we go. The other thing, as I say, build all the wheels up, put them under some blocks, and then they'll have to find their own level. So we've got to make 12 of those up. So I'm going to get on and get that done, and then I'll come back and see how it looks. Okay, we're back. So we can start removing some of these clothes pegs and things now. So that's them all nicely secured. So we can put these little towing loops back in. So that's going to slot into there. And we'll just put a drop of extra thin on there, and that will act as a, I'll call it a lubricant, although I know it's not. What it's doing is softening the surface. There we go. We don't worry about glue oozing out because it's a welded joint anyway. So there we are. And then we can just run some extra thin into there. Just give it a bit of a, there we go. So that's that all together. Now, so we're back to square one now. So sprockets are done, road wheels are done. As I said, I've got weights on them here, and that makes sure they end up all nice and parallel, so that when we roll them on the bench, they stay parallel. Now, if you remember, I'm going to do these first because these have been glued longest. I said I don't worry about taking the sprue gates off of there, and what I'm going to do here is take this is a worn out 400 grit, and what I'm going to do is, if you notice, I'm sanding both tyres together. What I'm doing is just sanding them like this, 45-degree angle going across, and that will take out any mould draft. When I say draft, it's D-R-A-F-T, not draft as in drafty windows. But basically what it is, it's taking away that sprue gate as well. And what this is doing is taking away the draft, which is basically a taper, because the parts have to have a very slight taper on them to come out of the mould tool. So what you're doing there is just sanding them, and now you've got rid of the sprue gates and you've got your tyres nice and parallel. If you do them singly, you run the risk of having them rolled or whatever. So there we go. So we can go around and sand all them. Now the actual radius arms, we can now fit these, and I'm just going to check which way I can see on here which way around to go. So this is the correct one for this side. So, and we can see that in there we've got the hole. So you can see that these are glued at this end. So what I can do there is just slide that in, get that engaged in there, and now we've got working suspension. Now I'm not going to glue these yet, I'm going to leave them longer to go off hard, but basically we'll put a drop of cement in there and that'll keep it in, and we've got our working suspension. And then the wheel will pop on like that. As you can see, the wheel can turn freely, and the sprocket will pop in like that. Okay, and then this rear one, the rearmost one, as you can see, I've removed that nub in so it doesn't go in that slot, so this one will still work. Okay, now the shock absorber I'm going to look at, either we're going to have the shock absorber working, or what I will do is just glue one end, and then that will just move and the shock absorber, it won't be authentic, but you're not going to see any of that anyway because it's going to be behind the wheel. Okay, that's come out of its key in there. There we go. Alright, so there we go. So we'll have working suspension all the way along rather than just the front 5. So there we go, guys. So basically we've done, just like John did with his videos, we've done steps 1 to 3. As you can see, all this is removable for painting, which is dead handy. You can see that sprocket's coming away from there easily. I'm wondering if I've got a problem with this cement. Oh, I remember now, I didn't glue them, did I? I only tacked them on. I only tacked them on, didn't I? Because I wanted to make sure I had them aligned. So yeah, we'll get those. In fact, they can go under the weight now as well. There we are, that can sit there. In fact, we'll move it over there in case the weight falls off, but that'll keep them nice and parallel. Now, you've either seen it or it's coming. ET model tracks, and these are for the Magic Factory M2 Bradley series, okay, also for the A7 B-Fist. So basically they're 3D printed parts, and there was a bit of a question of whether they would fit this kit because they are slightly wider than the kit's tracks. Where are the kit's tracks? Here they are. These are the tracks you get in the kit. Okay, and as you can see, they fit the sprocket beautifully. They go down in lovely. These are slightly larger. They're slightly wider. Alright, so you can see they still fit beautifully. They've also got the separate pads, so you don't have to paint it. If you haven't seen the review, go and have a look. But they are slightly wider than the kit tracks, as you can see there. They are just a touch wider, but they do actually fit on the sprockets, and the horns will fit between the roll wheels, so we're good to go. I haven't checked the idler yet, but I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine. But there we go. So if you want to get yourself some of those, you can. Or, as I said in my review, if you haven't seen, I may not even put the video out, we'll see. But the there is also the RFM ones. There's three, I can't remember the numbers, 3007 I think it is, maybe 3207 and 3208. The ones to go for is 3208 because I've got a feeling 3207 is just the same as the plastic parts you get in the kit. I may end up building this up and using them. It's just they're an absolute nightmare to put together without getting glue everywhere. These are a nightmare to put together because there's so many parts. We've also got the tracks from the M10 Booker as well. In fact, I'm going to grab one of those and try it on this sprocket. Hang on. Okay, so these are the tracks from the Magic Factory kit. These are from the M10 Booker. They share the same chassis. Now these are beautiful. These are the best kit tracks I've ever had. They're basically the same as these, but with plastic parts rather than 3D printed. The only difference is the pads are moulded in. On these ET model ones, you get separate pads, which makes it real nice to be able to paint them if you're that fussy. And they fit the sprockets, although they are they're the same as those ET model ones, they're a little snug. Okay, so they do fit beautifully. They will roll around in there, as you can see, absolutely fine, but they are a little snug, so perhaps just go with a sanding stick or a file and just take a tiny touch off the edge of the teeth. These are, as you can see, the same with the ET. I wonder if these RFM ones are under scale, because these are the same sort of size as the ET model ones. These are a little bit finer, but then these are made for Magic Factory, and these are Magic Factory. So, but as you can see, the tracks, they're a little more chunky. These, you know, everything, they're sort of bigger in every way. So I'm not sure which one's correct, but you know, and I was saying in my review, the M10 Booker kit from Magic Factory, you could get it from Tiger Hobbies, is about 50 quid, and these tracks alone are about 50 quid. So, you know, if you go for the RFM tracks, the RFM 3D printed tracks, they're about £33. So it's up to you, you know, what you want to do, but still a lot of more money to pay. So you might just want to go on and assemble these. But yeah, you need a few long films to assemble them. You have to be so careful with the glue. But anyway, I've done a video on that. So I'll see you all soon for part 2. Thank you for watching. We've got that through. Part 3, well, the stages 1 to 3 in the instructions, although I haven't completed it yet. But you can see it's all been built up and ready to go. So I'll see you back for part 2 when we'll make a start on step 1. We'll finish off this and we'll make a start on step 4. Thank you for watching, and bye for now. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and hit the notifications bell. And I'll see you for the next one.